Good afternoon. My name is Karen Matto, and I'll be moderating this session called Charles Bonnet Syndrome, Why Am I Seeing Things That Aren't There? First, I want to start out by introducing Megan McHugh, one of our speakers for today. Megan works at the Canadian Helen Keller Centre in Toronto. She teaches those who are deaf-blind to use assistive technology. Megan is a role model for the acquired deaf-blind population as she adapts to her own recent significant vision loss. Megan won the JT Award, which recognizes significant contributions to the Canadian deaf-blind community. Megan is currently the president of the Canadian National Society of the Deaf-Blind, also known as CNSDB, and she has consulted in partnership with the Deaf Wireless Canada Committee and with the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission. Next, I'd also like to introduce Marta Zaharia, who will be speaking as well for us today. Marta is a graduate of the George Brown College Intervener for Deaf Persons program. She has been working in the deaf-blind intervener services sector since 1992. She started her career as an intervener, working her way up to her current role as the Consumer Support Specialist at Canadian Helen Keller Centre. Marta was the first recipient of the CHKC Joan McTavish Award. Marta is an advocate for interveners and the professionalization of the role in the province of Ontario, most notably as the current president of the Intervener Organization of Ontario, also known as IOO. As part of the IOO and Marta's outstanding work, she became one of the founding board members of the Deaf-Blind Network of Ontario, also known as DBNO. Marta is a member of the Deaf-Blind International Conference Committee and is the chair of the Communications Committee. Please join me in welcoming Megan and Marta.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to start the workshop, and then as we go along, I'm going to let Megan know when it's her turn to speak. So are we okay to start, Megan?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So what is Charles Bonnet Syndrome? Charles Bonnet Syndrome is also known as CBS, is a condition where a person with vision loss sees things that aren't there. CBS is caused by the brain adjusting to vision loss. When someone has healthy vision, light enters the eye, hits the retina, the light-sensitive tissue at the back of the eye. The retina changes these light rays into visual messages, which are sent to the brain so that we can see. When people lose some or all of their vision from conditions like age-related macular degeneration, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, retinitis pigmentosa, and cataracts, the visual system does not process new images properly. Without visual data coming through the eyes, the brain fills the void and makes up images or remembers stored images for you to see. This is the cause of the visual hallucinations. It is very much like how when people have lost a limb, they may feel the phantom pain. CBS is not a sign of mental health problems or dementia. What people see varies from person to person. There can be repeating lines such as dots and shapes, landscapes like waterfalls and mountains, brick walls that appear out of nowhere, animals, bugs, people, imaginary creatures like dragons or fairies. Hallucinations may appear realistic, making people think that someone or something is there. Hallucinations might move or remain still, and they can be in black and white or in color. Hallucinations can last for seconds, minutes, or for hours. Now here, Megan, is the beginning of your story. So, Megan's going to share her experience, and she's going to start with, my grandmother came for a visit.
Well, I've had CBS for several years, although it's been most active over the last couple of years as I've lost a lot more vision. But this story about my grandmother happened in 2019, and I was visiting my mom and dad at their home in Oshawa. So my mom was in the den sitting on the sofa, and I had just walked into the den, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I saw what appeared to be my grandmother walking in through the door. Now, this was probably one of the most vivid CBS hallucinations that I've ever had, because I've had a wide variety of them. But basically what happened is that I saw my grandmother just walking in the door. Now, she died in 1999, but she looked like she was alive. It looked like there was really someone there because it was so vivid. She looked like she was wearing the type of clothes that she used to wear, the type of shoes she used to wear. And so when she walked into the room, she turned and she looked at me, and then she turned and looked at when she looked at me, she looked so real that I just instinctively said, "Hi, Nana." And then when she looked at me, then she looked at my mom, and then she just disappeared. So I was left just standing there thinking like, whoa, did I really, really see that? It kind of, it didn't scare me, but it kind of shook me up a bit because it was totally out of the blue and it wasn't expected. So it kind of surprised me.
So next, it's what's wrong with the goldfish?
Oh, I could say plenty of things were wrong with the goldfish. So I was so this is another type of hallucination that I had, and there was actually a few different types of situation with the goldfish. So the one I saw what appeared to be like water right in front of me. Like I was sitting in my living room, and I could see a water scene in front of me, where there were goldfish swimming around in the water. So there was one goldfish that was swimming around, and then as it swam around, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it actually just filled the whole wall of my apartment. Like it was huge. But that's not even the strangest one. Another strange one was that I was seeing these goldfish, like there was several goldfish swimming along, sort of in a line. And then all of a sudden I realized that the goldfish seemed to have with that particular one, I was seeing it as if it was off in the distance, so they were smaller. But I was seeing them as if they were really there, and it looked like they had grown legs, like the goldfish had grown short, stubby legs as they were rushing across, and there were people riding on them. So the goldfish are basically, going along like that on their short, stubby legs. And then the last one with the goldfish was kind of creepy because I was just watching these ordinary goldfish swimming around, and then all of a sudden something chopped their heads off. So all of a sudden I'm seeing these goldfish that are there with their heads chopped off, and I can see the blood seeping out around where their heads had been and dispersing into the water. And one thing you have to understand is that my current vision, I could never see anything like that. Yeah, I was seeing it as if it was very clear and there. And then when I got a front view of the goldfish, it looked like just looked like a bloody mess inside where the heads had been chopped off.
The next is 2 guys in my apartment.
Yeah, that was a creepy one. So I was relaxing in my easy chair, and then all of a sudden I realized that there was 2 guys. There appeared to be 2 guys standing in my apartment, just about maybe 4 or 5, maybe 5 feet away from where I was. No, I mean, I thought there can't now possibly be 2 guys in my apartment, but they look like they're right there. And I got up, and as I got up, one of them that I noticed he had a dog with him, he just moved a little bit and then he disappeared. But the other guy, he looked like he was really there. And when I moved up and walked over to where I saw him and sort of swishing at him, because that's one of the techniques they say to use, but it didn't work. He didn't go away or anything, but then he started walking. He sort of turned and started walking through my apartment, and I actually walked behind him. And then when I did that, I was seeing him from behind. So it was just like walking behind somebody. So he walked around and then went toward the front door of my apartment. And when he got maybe 3 feet or 4 feet from the door, he just basically disappeared. Now that one kind of shook me up, because when you're seeing people in your living environment that shouldn't be there, that feels like an invasion of privacy. I mean, even though they weren't really there, it did creep me out.
And the last story is skiing and the red sweater.
Yeah. Well, I used to ski a lot before my vision got so bad. So this is a common thread. I was just relaxing in my easy chair, and I was waiting for my home organizing instructor to arrive. So and all of a sudden I realized I was seeing these ski chairlifts coming out, it's coming out from different sides, because what I was seeing hills, like snow-covered hills. So they're sort of like one hill off this way, they're separated by a line of trees, and then another hill sort of in the center, and then another hill off to the right. So they're all separated by trees. And I'm seeing these chairlifts coming up. And on every single chairlift, there was one person wearing a bright red sweater, which is relevant to me because, for one thing, I could always, before when I had better vision, I could always see the color red easier than any other color. So I'd often have my interveners wear a red top. But anyway, so the chairlifts are coming up, and they looked like they were coming up so close to me that they would hit me, but of course they were just sort of whizzing by. And then they would drop off the skiers, and the skiers would head down the hill, and there'd be more of them coming up, and there'd be chairlifts coming from 3 different directions. So that kind of made me miss skiing. And my home organizing instructor did show up, so she showed up right in the middle of that, and I just told her to come in. So while I was seeing all of these things, I was giving her a play-by-play description of what I was seeing.
So Megan, we're going to move on to other people's experiences.
Yeah.
So that one is the river on the road.
The river on the road?
Yeah.
The river on the road.
Yes, that's one that an older gentleman, he's passed now, but he was an older gentleman, and very, very low vision, and totally deaf. And he wouldn't have seen anything on the road because his vision was so poor. But yet he would be out walking with his intervener along the sidewalk, and he would describe in great detail how he would see the road beside the sidewalk. He would now now see a river where it was, and there would be horses running through the river. And even though he had so little vision, he was able to describe them in great detail. And he would actually try to pull his intervener away from the road where they were walking, because to him it looked like the water from the river was coming up over onto the sidewalk. That's how realistic it was. Now, one of the things there, that was something that could be a potential safety hazard.
And the next one is intruders in my home.
Yeah, this is a situation where an older woman, a woman in her 70s, I believe, she started seeing people in her home. Sometimes they would look very realistic, sometimes they would look ghostly, but it was just. For her, it's really a horrible situation, because she'd be constantly seeing people in her home who weren't really there, but it was really upsetting to her, because it always felt like they were watching her all the time. And if you think about it this way, if you were in the bathroom getting changed and you see a man in the bathroom watching you, I mean, that's really creepy. I mean, that's really and so it's been a very frustrating and stressful situation for her.
We're going to take a battery change break for a minute. Okay, Megan, I let everyone know you were changing your battery.
Yeah, I know. I meant to change. I'm so sorry. I meant to change them before I come in here, just to be safe.
No, don't apologize.
Yeah.
So Megan, we'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
So the next slide is intervener, family, friends, and supports. How can they help?
Yeah.
Listen to what the person has to say.
And that's really important to validate what the person is seeing. But of course, you have to remind them that no, it's not real, that it's not really there. But it's important for the person to be heard.
Let them describe what they see.
Yeah.
Validate and gently remind them that it's CBS and that it's not real.
Yeah. That can be challenging for someone who is seeing things that look so much like they are really there. And sometimes, like with the CBS, the hallucinations appear as an overlay on your real environment. So you're no longer seeing your real environment. And so instead, what you're seeing is it may come, the CBS hallucination may come with its own scenery, and you're seeing things moving around in that scenery.
Help the person refocus. Suggest moving away from the area or change the lighting.
Yeah, that could make a big difference, especially like, moving away from the area and changing the lighting helps to distract the person from the hallucination. Changing the lighting, that might help if the person has some residual vision, because if it's very bright, dark, making it darker, or if it's dark, making it brighter. And again, that can maybe that can give the person something else to see that distracts from the hallucination.
Have honest conversations and be aware of surroundings to ensure safety. In extreme cases, support a safe space by changing the living environment. Remove tripping hazards, eliminate sharp corners, increase or decrease lighting.
That can make a big difference, because I found for myself changing the lighting helps in making the environment safer, because sometimes sometimes people who are having a hallucination may try to quickly move away from the hallucination, and in the process they may run into something else or fall over something and injure themselves. Or they could try to go after what they're seeing and the same thing happening.
So we're moving on to the next slide, Megan.
Yeah.
How can you help yourself? Seek out professional help to get a diagnosis.
Yeah, that's important, because even if you're pretty sure that it's CBS because of it coinciding with vision loss, there can be other causes of a person having hallucinations. There could be a medical cause like a brain tumor or something else.
Occupy yourself by focusing on another task like reading or using your phone.
I found that can often help for me if I'm trying to distract myself from the hallucination. But what I find happens when I've got my phone, well, I can't really see my phone. I use the screen reader, but I can see the outline of apps on my phone, so some details. And what happens is that when I first pull out my phone, I start seeing the hallucination on my phone screen, and another person said that they have the same thing happen. But when you start working on it and focusing on it, that does help to get away from the hallucination.
Open and close your eyes. Move your eyes from side to side or up and down.
I've tried that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's a good trick to try.
As mentioned before, change your environment, increase or decrease lighting.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to the next slide, Megan.
Yeah.
Remind yourself, friends and family, and others that hallucinations are caused by vision loss and not a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm. That's important, and it's important for people to understand that it is not that. It is related to the vision loss, because one of the things that people worry about, especially if they've never heard about CBS before, is they may feel like, oh, am I going crazy? I'm seeing things. So, or other people may think that. So it's good to break down that stigma.
If you have anxiety related to CBS, a doctor may be able to help you with that.
Yes.
Join a peer support group. Talk to someone about the hallucinations. This can make you feel less isolated.
Yeah.
There is no shame with CBS.
Yes, our support group can be very helpful, because it allows you to talk to others who are dealing with the same thing. So you can share your stories. You can support each other through difficult times. And it just makes you feel like you're not alone, like you're not the only one that has this happening to them.
We're going to move on to the next slide, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
So, Canadian Helen Keller Centre Peer Support Group. You are not alone. So, Canadian Helen Keller Centre has started a CBS peer support group.
It's great because again, like I mentioned, it helps for people who are dealing with CBS to share stories and support each other. Now our support group is new, so we're still trying to get the word out more, to get more people to be involved. We have both in person and the option for people to join it on Zoom.
And there's other opportunities to talk to others dealing with the same things.
Yeah.
Learn new tips and tricks that may help with the hallucinations, and an opportunity to support each other and share experiences.
Yes, I have found that helps, because And I've actually been part of a CNIB support group where there's they've got a fair number of people built up for that. So it's definitely helpful, and it helps you learn more about what's going on with the CBS.
And we're on our last slide, which I'm going to make sure I do, which our presentation is done, Megan.
Yeah.
So we are now prepared for any questions, if anybody has any questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh. Megan? So, Megan, we're going to have to steal your microphone.
Okay.
And there are some questions in the audience, okay? Why don't you come on over to the podium?
Okay.
And there's the microphone there.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Siri and I come from Norway. You said that you experienced hallucination while you sat and relaxed in your chair.
So you were saying that you had some hallucinations while you were sitting relaxed in your chair?
Yes.
Is that like, do you find that the hallucination come more often when you relax, or does that, you know, has anything to say?
Hallucinations happen more when you're relaxed, or what kind of, what usually are you doing when you have your hallucinations?
I do find them happening more frequently when I'm relaxed, probably because my brain isn't busy focused on doing something else. But I do sometimes have them when I'm out doing things, and in some cases that can be a bit annoying because it can just distract me from what I'm trying to do. But to a large extent, I would say that they tend to happen more when I'm relaxed because my brain isn't busy doing other things.
I think there's a follow-up question.
Not a follow-up question. My name is Tora. I'm from Norway as well. But I was wondering.
I'm so sorry. Sorry, not a follow-up question. I'm not paying attention, Megan.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Yeah.
I had some question about the helpful tips you had about.
Questions about the helpful tips that you had.
About eye movement, change of location, lighting, things like that. Would this also help for persons who have no vision at all? Like if you have like a glass eye, is it the change of visual input that could help, or is it the change of focus for the brain?
Is it the change of focus? Would it help for someone, for instance, that say has a glass eye?
Well, for someone who has no vision, when we're talking about change of focus, we're not necessarily talking about focusing your eye. We're talking about focusing on doing something different that will distract you from the hallucination. Now, keep in mind that for some people, they can easily or somewhat easily distract themselves from the hallucination and break out of it. But for other people, no matter what they do, it doesn't work. But now, for someone who has some sight, changing the lighting may help. Obviously, that doesn't work for someone who has no vision. But when it comes to the focus, it's about, busying yourself with something else that will get your brain busy and try to get it away from the hallucination. Now, I have to say, to a large extent, a lot of the hallucinations I have are not bothersome. I mean, some are, but a lot of them are not. Sometimes they can be entertaining. But for other people, especially, for example, if they're seeing horrible things or if they're seeing people in their home environment, that can be a very negative thing that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. Because even if you know that they're not real, it's still like I see someone in my home environment, even if you know it's not real, it still affects you. Yeah.
There's 2 more questions in the crowd, Megan.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Tanya from Canada. I'm just wondering if this ever gets misdiagnosed as schizophrenia or any other type of
I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing
does
you.
CBS ever get misdiagnosed as schizophrenia ever, and is there ties to that?
So there's oftentimes misdiagnosis, Megan, with like schizophrenia or things like that?
Yes, I've heard that too. Yeah. My understanding is that the diagnosis for Charles Bonnet Syndrome is more one of elimination, like eliminating other possible causes of the hallucinations.
There was another question in the back.
Hello, my name is Eric from the Netherlands. It might be a silly question, but I was wondering, we were talking about visual hallucinations. Is there also, or do you experience something like an audio hallucination?
So the question is, you're talking about visual hallucinations. Are there sometimes audio hallucinations?
Well, with CBS, the way from what I hear about CBS is that it's expected to be entirely visual hallucinations. However, I have heard of some people who have audio hallucinations as well, but I'm not sure how that ties in with the CBS. Like, for example, I may see people who appear to be talking, but I don't hear any sounds from them, obviously because they're not actually there. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a question in the front. Yep.
Hi there, this is Chris from America. I'm just wondering, when you start to have CBS and the symptoms start, like what were the hallucinations that you had when you started, and have they, developed? Have they changed? Did they increase in visions or decrease? Has it been pretty stable? I'm just wondering what your experience was like from the beginning to where you are currently, if you could speak to that at all.
So when you first started having your hallucinations, did you have a lot of them? Have they increased over the years? Have they decreased?
When I first started having them, they were infrequent, and that was when I had better vision. I would say that over the last 2 years, especially because I've had a really major vision loss over the last 2 years. Like, I went from being able to read on my phone and my computer to not being able to really see much of anything now. And it does appear that over the last 2 years, I've had a lot more of them, more frequent, and I don't know. So from what I've heard, the level of vision does not necessarily determine how often or what type of hallucinations you have. But in my case, I've found that as my vision got worse, that they were happening more often, which kind of makes sense because the idea about, this is what one researcher said, that when your brain, the part of the brain that processes vision is not receiving much or any input from the eyes, that's when it starts to go into overdrive and create its own images. So In my case, that makes sense because it's really been especially active since I had much less vision.
Megan, maybe you can talk to about the woman who lost all of her vision and no longer has hallucinations.
Yeah, so this was in another support group that I was in, and there was one woman who had lost all of her vision, and she was seeing different things, different colors and different things, so on. And then she reached a point where she was no longer seeing the things that she was seeing with her CBS, and she was asked, she was asked how she felt about that, and she said that she would rather see something than nothing. And I guess I could sort of kind of say the same thing, because if I'm seeing a hallucination of something that is pleasant to look at, then that beats not seeing anything at all. Now, mind you, my hallucinations mostly tend to be non-threatening and sometimes amusing, or you know. So for me, I'd rather be able to see that than see nothing. And the hardest part I had actually with this presentation was coming up with 4 different things to talk about, because I've had so many different things. So it's some amusing, some less amusing, so on. You know, like I could say, a bicycle built for 2 or 3 or 4 or more, where I would see a tandem bicycle, and then I would see it stretch out, and all of a sudden there's like 5 or 6 people all pedaling along on the same tandem bicycle. So that's really funny.
It doesn't look like there's any more questions in the crowd, Megan.
Okay.
So I think Karen's going to come up and have a few words, so I'm going to shimmy out of the way.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Megan and Marta. We really appreciate your coming here today to share a little bit more about Charles Bonnet Syndrome and to help us understand a bit more about your experience. So thank you. So as part of our thank you, we'd like you to accept a gift. We would like you to accept the gift.